Is it actually possible to do a proper brand research in less than 30 minutes? And I mean a proper brand research, not opening Instagram, scrolling for 5 minutes and going, yeah, strong brand. I mean, understanding what people really associate with a brand, what they talk about, what they like, what annoys them, and how it compares with competitors. So, for today's episode, I needed to pick a brand, and I picked IKEA because I love brands that use humor and storytelling well. And IKEA is interesting because somehow buying a bookshelf from them became an ultimate activity. You don't just go to IKEA, you go to IKEA. There are all these fake apartments, tiny pencils, meatballs, and at some point you really start believing that your life would finally come together if you own 6 more storage containers. So let's see what is actually doing the heavy lifting for IKEA's brand right now. Is it the furniture or everything they've built around it? You can actually start brand research by asking AI. So I asked ChatGPT, tell me what you know about the IKEA brand. And the first thing it told me was actually pretty interesting. It said that the brand is much bigger than the furniture. So basically, ChatGPT's argument was that IKEA has built an entire little universe around their products. It also brought up IKEA's vision, which is to create a better everyday life for the many people. And it's an idea of democratic design: form, function, quality, sustainability, and low price. So, to be completely fair, AI gave me a pretty good hypothesis that IKEA wants to make good design accessible, but culturally, the brand has become much bigger than furniture. The problem is that's still an overview, and I want to know whether people are actually talking about IKEA that way. So, I'm gonna move to brand 24. Okie dokie. So, over the last 30 days, IKEA generated over 60,000 mentions with an estimated total reach of 329.5 million. Sentiment was 21% positive, 10% negative, and 69% neutral. But the numbers weren't actually the most interesting part, the topics were, because the biggest conversation theme wasn't furniture. It was IKEA's social buzz. So people sharing their visits, their personal experiences, viral moments, and overall nostalgia. That theme generated almost 5,000 mentions, reached 21.2 million people, and represented 42% of share of voice across the topics Brand24 analyzed for me. Furniture and core came second with around 2,000 mentions and 8.3 million reach. So ChatGPT's hypothesis holds up surprisingly well. People aren't only talking about what IKEA sells, they are talking about going to IKEA. As I already mentioned, IKEA might be one of the few brands where simply visiting the store is content. In the conversations I analyzed, people were sharing IKEA trips, childhood memories, hacks, and random things they found in IKEA stores. Not a product launch, not a new sofa, but think about how IKEA stores work. You walk through bedrooms, kitchens, living rooms. You are not looking at isolated products anymore, but possible versions of your life. You go and think, oh, I could have a reading corner, even though you haven't finished the book since February. But for these 12 beautiful seconds at IKEA, you're a reading corner person. And that's exactly where IKEA's storytelling gets so clever. There is a couch, a rug, a suspiciously well-placed mug, and suddenly you are not evaluating furniture. You start imagining yourself living there. You could make a joke about assembling furniture without mentioning the logo, and everyone would know exactly which brand you're talking about. And as we all know, one of IKEA's most recognizable brand assets is a meatball. for a furniture company. But I think it makes complete sense when you stop thinking about IKEA as just a shop. You've been there for hours, you've walked through 17 imaginary apartments, redesigned a kitchen you don't own, and had a minor disagreement about whether you need another lamp. Now you're hungry, so the restaurant becomes part of the ritual. And that's how furniture shopping somehow became a day out. And every part of that experience gives people another reason to remember the brand beyond the actual furniture. Now, I would love to have more context because 60,000 mentions means very little until you compare it with something. So, I compared IKEA with JYSK, and this isn't particularly close. IKEA had around 60,000 mentions versus JYSK's 8,363. Social media mentions were 34,000 versus around 2,000. Social reach was 143 million versus 16 million. But my favorite number here is user-generated content because IKEA had around 40,000 pieces of UGC and JYSK had 2,122. And that's where this stops being a furniture comparison. Because IKEA hasn't only created products people buy, it has created a world where people make content about the trips, the hacks, the weird finds, the rooms, the food, the experience itself. So even though it's changing, for now, the perception is that JYSK can sell you furniture and IKEA can make you create content about going furniture shopping. So ChatGPT's first observation was actually pretty good. IKEA is bigger than the furniture. But now we have evidence. The biggest conversation theme in my analysis was experiences, visits, and viral moments. Furniture and decor came second. And IKEA generated around 19 times the user-generated content of JYSK. And that's the difference between having recognizable products and having a recognizable brand. Because you can compete with IKEA on the price of a table. And you can make a similar shelf, but recreating decades of memories, rituals, jokes, and associations around the brand, that's slightly harder. And maybe that's the actual lesson here. Your brand isn't only what people buy from you, it's everything they remember about it. So, can you actually do useful brand research in less than 30 minutes? I think you can learn a surprising amount. AI gave me the hypothesis, Brand24 gave me the evidence, the conversations showed me why, and comparing IKEA with JYSK gave the numbers more context. And as usual, if you would like to try Brand24 for yourself, the link is in the description.